Hey guys, it's Saria. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is another DIY. Obviously, most of my videos are. As are most of my videos awkward. So today's video is a Cinderella inspired craft. I am so in love with how this wreath came out, guys. It's very affordable supplies. I will tell you guys, I was able to make this, I personally, was able to make this wreath for $2 because I had so much of this stuff on hand. So I used a lot of my scrap ribbon, scrap fabric. I had a thing of yarn already. So I was able to do this for a very affordable price. I will list out as much as I can for you guys just how much each piece probably will cost you if you do it exactly how I did it. But I would also really encourage you guys just to look through your stashes of what you have. I'm a huge fan in repurposing things. I've even cut up like old t-shirts and curtains and things like that that we're not using anymore for craft purposes. So obviously, like, don't do that without discussing it with your household, but just saying you can. Anyway, this wreath is Cinderella inspired, and it is the pink dress inspired. This is one of my favorite scenes in Cinderella when the little mice and birds are making Cinderella's dress. It's just so sweet and heartwarming and completely makes me think of Valentine's Day because of the colors. I did make this for a Disney YouTube friend, and she will be unboxing this in February because it was for our Galentines Swap. I'm not going to ruin who has it or who got it, but I did want to post the tutorial ahead of the box swap. I hate doing that because I feel like I ruined some of the surprise, but I also feel like this tutorial needed to go up before Valentine's Day, so... That being said, if you guys aren't subscribed to my channel, be sure you do and ring that notification bell so you don't miss on who got this beautiful wreath. And without any more chit chat, let's jump into the tutorial. Sweet! If you guys are all interested in the ears that I'm wearing on my head, I do have a tutorial on these ears as well. I did this years ago as a collab with my friend Beth over at the Collectioneers Club, and I'll have that tutorial linked below if you guys are interested.
You're going to need one of these wire wreath forms. I got mine from Dollar Tree. They do actually sell these in a bunch of different sizes. I picked up an even bigger one after I filmed this tutorial. And then they have some small ones as well. And then I took this broken beaded necklace from upstairs from my daughter's playroom because it's broken and I'm on a budget. And I will be spray painting that this light blue color, and I will be spray painting the wreath form a blush pink color. I already had these spray paints on hand. And now that my wreath form has dried and it is pink, I'm going to be, well, I just wanted to show you guys. These are all the pink like notions that I already had. So like different trims and beads and stuff. And then I also had this pink yarn on hand. So I did decide to wrap the entire wreath in pink yarn. This is one of my favorite style of wreaths. I just love how the yarn looks. I think it just looks nice and clean. And I'm not a huge fan of the, what are those called? Like the tulle wreaths where it's like big and poofy. Those just aren't my personal style, so I find this to be kind of a cool alternative of using those same wreath forms. But I'm just going to tie this in a knot and then begin wrapping it all the way around. This is definitely the most time consuming part about doing this type of wreath. I did a Jack Skellington wreath in a yarn. That's the end of my sentence, in yarn, but I did it in a black and white striped pattern, and because this one was just all one color, it was a lot faster. So sit in front of the TV and get this part done. And then once you have it all wrapped, you can go ahead and clip off, obviously, like that whole bundle of yarn, and then you can either hot glue down the edge or you can tie it around and just give it a knot. I like to do the knot just because I'm putting less hot glue all over the wreath and risking making less mess. Also, speaking of mess, this is a tutorial that is going to have mess all around me for several days because this wreath did take me a little while to make, and you're going to see an array of things on my desk. So just be ready for that. But this is what it looked like all covered in yarn, and next I'm going to move on to the bow. So this is the first bow that I made, and I did it 8 inches by 7 inches, and it just was too small. It was not the right scale for this particular wreath. So I ended up making one that was 10 inches by 10 inches, but I didn't refilm it just because it's the same method. So you're going to cut a square that is 10 inches by 10 inches, and then you're going to use your hot glue gun to hem the edges. So you'll just add a line of hot glue, fold over your fabric, and tap it down into the glue, and you'll do this around all 4 sides just so that your fabric doesn't fray on the edges. Once you have that part done, then you are going to create the actual bow shape. And how you do that is just by folding this into thirds and tacking down the edges. So I'm just adding a dot of hot glue onto the corners and then folding it into the center of the bow. Again, if you do 10 inches by 10 inches, you're going to end up with a different looking bow, but I'll show you that one when it's done. And then originally I used this little pink sequin ribbon that I had on hand, but I do end up switching to another pink ribbon that I had on hand. It's actually bias tape, but it matched the color of the bow, and I just kind of liked that monochromatic look for the bow. So I picked up these little wooden hearts at Dollar Tree for a different craft, and then I decided to use them for this as well. I am painting them hot pink originally, and I do change the shade of pink on here probably 3 times. I'm actually going to show you guys a bunch of different ways that I did this because I failed multiple times making these. But first I painted them all pink, let them dry, and then because I didn't like how hot pink they were, I went in with a lighter blush pink. Both of these paints are acrylic paint from Dollar Tree. They are, 50 cents or something like that. And then I used a sponge brush, but I ripped off the sponge part because I wanted to kind of create a different texture with my paint. And I just kind of tapped on the light pink. And then I started doing brush strokes because the tapping wasn't working. So the first thing I tried was a tried and true method. It's worked for me on so many things, but this did not. So I just sketched out the letters in pencil, and then I went over the pencil in a paint marker that I use from Walmart. It's really good. I love this paint marker, but for some reason on these specific pieces of wood with the paint on them, I don't know, it showed up very sheer, and I tried to go over it again in another layer and it just got messy. So I repainted the pink back over it and tried again in another way. So the second method was to use some stickers like a stencil. The issue with these stickers is that the S's on them don't make good stencils because it has tape all over it, so it doesn't make an actual S. It just makes like a messy squiggly line. So I went in with an X-Acto knife and I cut out the extra sticker portion to make it more like a true S. Yes, I put all this work in, guys, and this still didn't work. So then I laid my stickers down like a stencil. I spelled out "So this is love" and painted over it using a hot pink paint. Now the best method I've learned for using stencils like this is to immediately peel off the stencil. So while the paint is still wet, I usually peel it and this works great, except for this time. And this is what happened, and it just looks gross. So I repainted them again, and then I just decided, you know what? My penmanship is not too bad with a paintbrush, so I'm just going to hand paint the letters on. And this ended up being what worked the best for me. I just wanted to show you guys because, crafts don't always go the way that we wish they did. And sometimes things that normally work change their mind and stop working. It's just life. But I did paint the phrase "So this is love." I thought this made it a very cute little Valentine's Day touch, and it's one of the best songs in Cinderella, so. I did glue the hearts together like this, and then to make them not lose their shape, I went around with that same light pink paint and a very thin pencil brush and just painted along the edges of the heart. This is just to give it some dimension so that we can see that this is 2 defined hearts. I also wanted to show you guys just kind of how I played around with all of these different notions and textures. So I literally just laid things out, and then I used sewing pins to keep things in place while I messed around with them. So I did try to use some lace trim. This sparkly pink ribbon I did end up using, and then this is the original bow, but I ended up making another one. And then this thing I got at Walmart, it's just a tape measure, but it was yellow, just like the one that the mice use in the movie. So I had to pick that up. It was only $1. And that made me really excited. And then I was gifted a bunch of Doorables from a subscriber, and I did find a Gus Gus one in there, so I decided to add that as well. Now, once I had decided on the positioning, I did decide to center all of my stuff. I kind of played with the idea of it stemming from the side of the wreath, but I just preferred it symmetrically draping down from the center top. So I pinned the ribbon down, and then I just go in with my hot glue gun and I start just adding a little dot of hot glue and tacking down the ribbon to give it that kind of flowy movement, if you will, but make sure obviously that it stays in place. And then for my tape measure, I'm going to weave this in and out of this pink ribbon, but I did snip off that little metal piece on the end. And then same thing, I'm going to go in with my hot glue gun and just tack down this tape measure wherever I can. Now I wanted to share this even though I don't end up doing it. I really didn't want to cut the tape measure until I got to the number 50 because Cinderella came out in 1950. So I thought it would be really cute if the tape measure went to the number 50, but it just was too much. So I do end up cutting it and just making it kind of like go around half the wreath. And then the other notion that I added was this pearl trim that I had on hand. This is the very last of it that I had, and I had just enough to drape it like this going down kind of the center of the wreath. And then with my hearts, before I had painted on the words, I just was kind of playing around with how I wanted to place them. I knew I wanted the bow at the top center, and I end up gluing them on the bottom, which I'll show you guys in just a second. So it is a new day. I am re-gluing the pearls because I had to pull them tight. Originally I glued them kind of loose so they would drape, but they didn't look right. So I pulled them up, and then I am re-gluing them now to be a little bit more taut. And this ended up looking a lot better when it was hung on the wall. And I'm just hot gluing these down in place. Once again, these little silicone finger covers I'm wearing are from Dollar Tree. I use them all the time. If you guys see them, pick them up. I didn't like them at first, but they have really grown on me. And then this is my new bow. It is again 10 inches by 10 inches, and I am gluing this down into the center of my wreath at the top, if that wasn't clear by watching. And then once that glue has dried, the next thing I'm going to do is finish off this little tape measure. So I kind of held off on what I wanted to do with it because I really did want it to go to the number 50, but it just wasn't working. So I'm going to tack down the edges of that pink ribbon first and have it flicking out to the edge. Originally, I had planned on adding the bluebirds to this, but I just ran out of time. And I wanted them to be holding the ribbon out to the sides, but it just didn't work out. So you can see me playing with the tape measure a little bit more here, but I do end up cutting off that edge and just making it symmetrical. Now another item I wanted to add to this is this, it's like a key ornament. I got this from Hobby Lobby during their Christmas season, and I just held on to it for forever because it reminds me of the key that the stepmother has in her pocket during the movie and that the mice have to take all the way up the staircase. Moment of glory for those mice, let me tell you. But I wanted to add it to the wreath, so I thought it would look really cute just placed in between the bow. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach my little Gus Gus Disney Doorable now. I did look up to see if they had a Jacques one because I was going to buy him and add him to this wreath, but he doesn't exist. They only made Gus Gus. So sorry to the person I sent this to. You only get one of them. And then after he's firmly attached, next I'm going to add on those beads. You remember from the very beginning of the tutorial when I said I was going to spray paint these? So I did spray paint them. These actually are a little bit different because I found out I needed 2 strands, so I had to go steal more beads from my daughter's bedroom. It's fine. She doesn't know. And then after spray painting them blue and letting them dry, I'm going to hot glue this onto the edge of the wreath. Okay, we're getting to the final steps finally. So I'm going to take those hearts that I made earlier and I will be gluing these to the bottom of the bow. Now these do have little holes in the top and I'm going to show you guys a couple options for covering those up. But first I am going to attach mine just by laying down a layer of hot glue and then firmly kind of pressing them down onto my wreath. Now for the sides of this, I kind of played around with buttons and a thimble that I had on hand and like a little fake sewing needle that I had on hand. I'm sorry guys, I'm like a craft hoarder, so I have just a bunch of random stuff that I can use. But what I ended up doing was a mixture of kind of like pale pink and hot pink buttons, and then I did add a little hidden Mickey on the right side there, along with a little metal thimble that came in like a Dollar Tree sewing kit years ago. And then if you look on the left side, there's that little fake plastic sewing needle. That came in a button pack from Walmart a long time ago, but they actually do still sell it if you're looking. And then I'm just going to hot glue all of these pieces down where I placed them. And then because the wreath doesn't fit all in the same frame, I'm just going to give you guys kind of a little quick spin around of what it looks like overall. Now to cover up those holes, I should have done this before I painted them, but you can use like spackle or like hole filler for the wall essentially, and then let that dry, and once it's dry you can paint over it. This didn't work too well for me this time, probably because I was kind of trying to hurry and finish this. So I found some old hair bows for my daughters that they don't use anymore, and I popped off the backs and I glued those in place. Because desperate times call for desperate measures, guys. You could also obviously just make little bows, you could add buttons, there's a lot of different options. The very last step is to seal the edges of that ribbon that we added. So I'm just snipping off the really long pieces, and then I will take a lighter and you gently kind of burn the edge. That's going to seal it where it doesn't fray anymore. Obviously be careful. And this is the finished product of the wreath. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know if you have any questions, drop them for me below, or of course if you have requests for future DIYs, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on who I sent this lovely wreath to.